Flamingo Park podcast. I'm your host, Kenzie McGowan, and I am so excited to announce my very first guest of all time, Dr. Divi. Dr. Divi is an intuitive coach and MD, and she's based here in Vancouver. We will interview Dr. Divi and talk about her latest book that she's just published with co-author Lynette Brown called You Don't Look Psychic. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today on my first Flamingo Park podcast. I'm very pleased to have you here.
Thank you, Kenzie. Thank you for having me.
And I think I just sort of want to start out by, learning a little bit about you, obviously, but, how did you, I guess to start, how did you go from being, a doctor to doing this? Like, what did that look like for you?
So it's been a gradual transition, Kenzie. It's not been overnight. So I graduated really young at 25, med school, and within the first few years, I'll try to make the last 25 years short. It's been the last 2 years after I graduated, I got quite sick, and with things from chronic pain to allergies to depression, anxiety, all kinds of illnesses that there wasn't a quick fix for. So what ended up happening was how I got better was a journey into yoga and meditation.
Okay. And
then being really type A, I ran away. What I was really looking for was, why was the yoga helping? If that question was, but the thing is, when I didn't practice yoga, my pain would come back. So I ran away and I started to run a yoga studio, typical type A. And I did that for about a decade and taught yoga and practiced yoga full time, about a decade of my life. And that was in my 30s. And then as I was running, as I was ending the running yoga studios world, this is back about 12, 15 years ago now, I was coming to the end of that. I started to notice my intuition was really climbing. And it was around the time I was pregnant with my son. He's now 15, he's now almost 16. So this is now 16, 17 years ago. My intuition was climbing. And that's when I started doing some intuitive training. And I didn't even know what intuitive training was. I just started taking some local courses, which led to other courses and other courses. And I started to realize that there was a direct connection between my emotions and my pain. And then that led me into this work. And so I had done about 3 intuitive courses, and because I was curious, right? My intuition climbed from teaching yoga, and then I was leaving the yoga world. And I wasn't like looking for the next career move, because it wasn't a career move. It was more just part of my healing journey move. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't practicing yoga every day anymore. And I don't like pain. So I was trying to make that connection. The connection came through intuitions, understanding emotions, understanding energy. Then I was able to answer the question as to why I got sick 25 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so that actually makes me wonder, did you see a natural path or anything in that period where you were sick that helped with that healing process, or was that a self-discovery on your own with the yoga and the meditation?
Pretty self-discovery. 25 years ago, naturopaths existed, but no one saw them. And I don't mean that in a rude way. It was just back then and who I was then. And I'll own that, you know? They were still on the outskirts. I was a young doctor. They were still on the outskirts. And I mean, that's really changed in the last 2 decades. Mm-hmm. So no, I didn't do naturopathic work. So yeah, I did more like massage, some acupuncture, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then ended up in yoga, which then led me to where I went. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of yoga and daily practice. I think that if everybody did yoga, the world would be a very different place.
Totally. Totally. I love that. Yeah,
it really would be. So it's nice to hear you talk about it, because I have a big heart for it and everything that it does for the body and the mind and the soul. With that being said, body, mind, and soul. So has that really shifted what you do into that whole area? Like, you just sort of, that's it for you? You're going a completely different direction in terms of what you're doing with your career then?
Yeah. So again, we're talking years and years ago. I did the intuitive trainings strictly for myself. Then I started working with an intuitive coach because I was transitioning out of the yoga world and trying to figure out what was next for me. Mm-hmm. And she had known I had done these trainings, and she was encouraging me to do some readings. And I was like, and I was curious because in some of the trainings I had done, I had met people with physical symptoms that using my intuition, I was able to help. And I was like, nothing major. They'd come in, like they'd see, like we'd be in this large group of people in these trainings, and I'd always seem to gravitate towards people who had, say, back pain or constipation. They'd want, and then I would tell them what I was getting, and then like 2 days later, they'd say, that thing you said to me, it helped my back. And I'm like, okay. And because as a physician, I don't get locked up in the story of the pain, right? I was like, okay, it's whatever, you've got disc out. I'm not worried about that. My mind doesn't go there, so I can pretty much clearly pull the reading in. And so, that was just like, okay, I had that happened a number of times in some trainings I did. Then after I finished, I worked with this coach, and the coach happens to be the co-author of this book. Lynette Brown became my coach. And then when I started working together, and she was encouraging me to do some intuitive readings, I was like, okay. So I started, and then that led essentially to what I do now. That's been over a decade ago that I started doing readings, and it just literally just like, okay, and I'll do them, sure. And then I never thought it would lead me to what I do now, but now it's my full-time career. So.
And so can you expand on that? Like, can you give me an example of what a reading would be like with you?
Sure. So it's interesting because I had a client just a couple hours ago from Switzerland who came to see me on Zoom with scalp issues. Now I do a lot more than just health. Health is just one area of my business. But since you asked that question in reference to the last one, so she had some scalp issues. And so I'll close my eyes and I'll ask, okay, so what is the first things I say to these clients? And then I'll get a hit, like a download. And then I will say it to the client in the way of question or comment. Then the client speaks back. And I go back up to my guides and I say, okay, what do I say next? And then it just goes like that. And then at the end, she started to realize her hair and scalp issues were related to how she had given up the feminine energy of her life 3 decades ago, which is around when this health issue started. Nothing that she was going to die from, and she knows that, but a very irritating and annoying issue in her life. And she actually realizes that she gave up on her feminine side and gave up on loving her partner that long ago. And so it's like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
So
that is so interesting. And helpful, and it actually makes me want to book a reading now with you. Shocking. But I want to hear about you refer to your guides, and can you talk about what that means? Some people might not know what that term means, and can you expand a little bit on what you mean by guides?
So if you're relatively new to this work, as was I didn't grow up in a Catholic Christian type of family. I grew up in a Hindu family where we don't use those words. And it's more of a term that you don't have to use, but most people believe that there's something in the non-physical that's here to support us. And the word that sometimes uses guides or angels or energies, the other word, my more favorite word, is your divine support team, which is an expression to describe the constellations of energies that are here to help us. Whether we call them guides or angels, most people believe that there's something here to help and support us, which is where some people say they get their intuition from, and their knowings from, or their, gut feeling from, comes from somewhere. And my answer to somebody, especially who's relatively new to this, is the word guides is just a way to describe where that comes from. Now, you don't have to think of it like there's a physical person talking to me here. You have to think of it that way. You can think of it any way you want, but I prefer the word divine support team, that there's a whole group of energies, our ancestors, non-physical, that are here to help us. We're not here by ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And when you receive these downloads, what kind of form do they come in? Do they come in like just into your mind, like you would be thinking a thought and you would sort of picture something in your mind? Is that sort of how it would be presented to you, or is it a feeling in your body? How does your guides present you information?
So all of us are intuitive, and that's a lot of what the book is about, is teaching people how to do that. So we all have different what's called clairs, C-L-A-I-R, and there's actually a whole quiz in the book on teaching you what yours is. So clairs are the way we receive our information. So one of the most dominant clairs is clairsentience, which is the ability to feel. So when you walk into a mall or you walk into a party, you can feel the energy in a party. I should be here, I should not be here, go to that side of the room, go to that side. That's clairsentience. Claircognizance is a thought insertion, which is what you're referring to. You get a thought. The other one is clairvoyance, which is to see like a dream, like you actually see a picture. And the last one is clairaudience, which is to hear. And they're all deeply described in the book, deeply described, which they are. My predominant three, so when I receive messages, I typically receive the feeling, the visual, and the thought almost all simultaneously.
Okay.
And sometimes it's more the visual and the thought at the same time, but I usually get 2 clairs activated at the same time. And then the job of an intuitive is first off to receive it, to be in the receiving mode, to receive it, then to interpret and put into words. And the more you do it, the more that interpretation gets easier. And it literally, and all of us are capable of this. All of us have it. It's a natural superpower we all have, but a lot of us have blocked it away. And so as we open up our clairs, we can be more attuned to it and more used in our daily life, even if you don't do what I do for work.
And I would think, just guessing, that yoga and meditation, those two things would help to stimulate those clairs.
100%. Meditation is by far one of the most important things to open up your clairs, because you have to slow down the human mind, which is why we typically tell people not to do readings on their friends or families, because your minds have a construct to it, right? A real. But when your mind is over here, then you can receive the messages a lot clearer for a stranger, somebody you don't know, somebody who's a client, much easier. So meditation is a part, and yoga, and I don't practice Kundalini yoga, but Kundalini yoga is an excellent one for opening the third eye. Or it's not, I don't practice just not because there's anything wrong. It's not a practice I take on very often.
Yeah.
But yeah, all yoga practices are excellent. And meditate, and I always say both, right? Yoga is the physical prep for meditation, and meditation is the prep for intuition. So, yeah.
What other things do you think could help to get our clairs going?
Yeah, and like we go through a bunch of things in the books, but listening to your emotions is the biggest one. What are you feeling? Getting connected to your body is a really important one for clairsentience. Not ignoring the back pain, the shoulder pain, the knee pain. What's it talking to you? It's a big one. Paying attention to the visuals that come your way in your dream state, or if you just get a vision, what's it showing you? Your clairaudience, a lot of people are really scared of what they hear, like hearing a voice. But me, clairaudience shows up as I hop in the car and our song is on. That song is for me. Or I'm sitting at a cafe, which we don't do a lot right now, but I'm overhearing a conversation. That's clairaudience. Right? When I walk into the room and that was on the TV, that's clairaudience, right? Yeah. And claircognizance, to access your claircognizance, you have to clear your thoughts. I always tell clients, you've all had this experience. You're out for a run on the seawall, and out of nowhere comes, pay your hydro bill. And you're like, oh, right, it's due today. That's claircognizance. Okay. But in order to receive that, you had to empty your mind, and that's why you were running, right? Yeah. So the more you can basically get out of your own thoughts, because our thoughts, 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day, they're like this. And if you can observe them and step out of them, that's the key to intuition, is to be the observer and find your center outside of them.